What if Ryomen Sukuna didn't die at the end of Jujutsu Kaisen and went back in time to the exact moment when Yuji swallowed the first finger? In this storyline, he awakens in the same vessel as last time, but this time he remembers everything. He knows exactly how he was defeated and the cost of his arrogance. And he also remembers the words he spoke. If there is to be a next time, perhaps it would be interesting to try a different path. This matters because Sukuna isn't coming back as conqueror of humanity. He's choosing to live again without letting anger and hatred guide him. Sukuna chooses a different path this time, not because he feels guilty, but because evil failed. And he genuinely wants to choose a different path in this lifetime, like a different adventure. So the main question that matters to him is, was I wrong? This time he steps off the stage and chooses to act from behind the throne. After all, he knows exactly where his path would lead, to his death. So he changes his plan to make Yuji his ultimate masterpiece. First, he analyzed the most important question, why he failed. The heroes fought against Sukuna for an extended period of time, one after the other. Gojo caused a lot of damage to Sukuna with his techniques. It forced him to rely on the 10 shadows and drained his energy reserves. Sukuna finally killed Gojo with a world-cutting slash. Yuta later came back in Gojo's body and caused even more damage. Yuji's soul strikes hit the boundary between Sukuna's soul and Megumi's. This caused Sukuna's physical form to desync and made his curse technique less effective. He struggled to maintain his physical vessel. Kashimo, Maki, and Higuruma forced Sukuna to use his Heian form early. They also dealt permanent soul damage with Maki's split soul katana. He wasn't able to heal with reverse curse technique. Yuta also trapped him in a domain expansion that allowed Yuji to land consistent hits. All of this stemmed from Sukuna choosing the path of evil. He was forced to fight several powerful people one after the other because he had gone too far in his evil ways. He looked down on humans and even most sorcerers. He had no regard for the lives of weaklings. They were in the way and that was inconvenient. Then there was the fact that he was drawn into Kenjaku's plan. He knew that there was something wrong and he just let things happen. All of it happened because Kenjaku never interfered directly. Sukuna was free to do whatever he wanted as a result. He played into Kenjaku's hand and made a bunch of mistakes. He let Yuji's friends die. He caused the Shibuya massacre. Then he fought Gojo. Every step he took dragged him further down his path of blood. And so Sukuna chooses an unfamiliar path and becomes not evil. He decides to not attack civilians. Even against sorcerers, he would only enter the fight if circumstances forced it to happen. He decides that he will never initiate a fight, ever. Only if he was forced to defend himself, he would seize control. This means that the first major change happens right when Yuji swallows the finger. Everyone notices that Yuji gained a ton of curse energy and a significant increase in strength after he ate Sukuna's finger. So they might decide that Yuji is a risk and contemplate if he is a threat. But without the obvious signs of Sukuna's awakening, this time Gojo has a lot more leeway. Not only was Yuji not punished with the death sentence, he was considered as a hopeful experiment. The higher-ups want to figure out if Yuji is an anomaly that can absorb Sukuna's power without awakening Sukuna's soul. And it's all possible because Sukuna doesn't take advantage of a desperate situation to torment Yuji. He doesn't engage in a brutal fight against Megumi with the goal to kill him either. Even during the finger bearer incident, he quickly dispatches the finger bearer and returns the body to a very confused Yuji. Megumi, who sees this, is just as confused because Yuji didn't do anything that gave away Sukuna's possession. Though they report it, nobody takes notice of it, except Gojo. Gojo, with his keen senses, realizes that within Yuji there is another consciousness, which belongs to the King of Curses. He has his doubts. But since he has an upper hand over the elders with the current situation, he never speaks them out loud. He decides to just observe for now. Meanwhile, Yuji, the man in question, is going through a different kind of torment even though Sukuna has turned over a new leaf. He doesn't know if he can trust Sukuna. After all, while the others didn't notice, he knows that Sukuna took over his body in an instant, killed the finger bearer, and then went back in. It made him feel nervous and unsafe. But at the same time, he also realizes that telling everyone about Sukuna is only going to make him a target. So he stays put for a while. He only feels a bit safe when Sukuna makes a binding vow not to harm anyone who isn't trying to harm him. As time progresses, while Yuji's training in Jujutsu High, under Gojo's observation he also gets advice from the King of Curses himself. This catapults Yuji's growth to another level. Yuji originally had 2 months of effective training and combat experience during the Culling Games arc, yet he was able to fight and defeat ancient sorcerers. He was even able to finally defeat Sukuna. With that transformation in mind, Sukuna begins training him. He doesn't try to be a mentor right from the start because he knows that it would be met with suspicion. Instead, he trains Yuji by relentlessly mocking his shoddy cursed energy control, and the results of the training appear far sooner than the original timeline. When Yuji starts working with Nanami, he already shows decent skill in wielding his cursed energy, and his attacks don't appear like they're from a rookie with no combat experience. However, while he is efficient in exercising the transfigured humans in the sewer, he's also guilt-ridden, just like the original timeline. When Sukuna notices this, he figures he might as well go all in with the new path that he took. So he provides the initial support even before Nanami and Gojo. With his slightly twisted point of view, he explains how the transfiguration works and how in a way Yuji is showing them mercy by letting them disappear. That becomes a big motivating factor for Yuji, but not as big as what's about to come. When Mahito appears and fights Nanami and Yuji, Sukuna tells Yuji that this is the person who was responsible for the transfigured humans. This plants the seed for hatred towards Mahito. Yuji, who is naturally good-hearted, can't believe that there is a person so full of evil that he just plays with humans and their lives. This time in the Junpei arc, Sukuna already knows what's going to happen with Junpei and who is responsible for it. So he warns Yuji about how volatile Junpei's mind is. Instead of letting Yuji have hopes because of the small positive signs Junpei shows, Sukuna explains Junpei's state of mind and what could happen if he loses his sanity. He also explains how Mahito is creating this fascination in Junpei while looking for his own finger, which Mahito leaves as a trap. This time, Sukuna is not a psychotic freak, and he has no reason to get joy from Yuji's suffering, so he helps Yuji prepare for the cursed spirit attack. This is also possible because Sukuna now has developed the ability to sense his fingers. He senses one being moved to Junpei's mother's location. They save Junpei's mother. Yuji also exposes Mahito's plans to Junpei and pulls him back from that nihilistic mindset. He convinces Junpei to nurture his talent in Jujutsu High, and essentially gaining another future ally with his immense potential. With this, Yuji started to trust Sukuna a lot more, at least enough to know that his advice would never lead him wrong. Even though Junpei saved and the bully who Junpei took revenge on survived, Yuji is still extremely angry with Mahito. This is the second time that he's seen Mahito's careless attitude towards human lives. However, unlike the original timeline, where Mahito absolutely enjoyed and reveled in Yuji's frustration, he himself almost lost all his sanity. Even though Sukuna's presence hasn't been confirmed in his timeline, Mahito and his clique are all banking on the theory that Sukuna is just dormant in Yuji's body and is waiting to be awakened. That's why he targets Junpei and everything that comes after that. This leads to a bitter clash in their very first encounter. In the original arc, Mahito forcibly transforms Junpei right in front of Yuji. He transforms into a horrible creature, attacks him and dies moments later. With a single question for Yuji: why? In the original timeline, Yuji begged Sukuna for help here, but Sukuna already had what he wanted and he refused to help. Sukuna laughed along with Mahito at Yuji's pain. This was the moment that crystallized Yuji's understanding that curses were irredeemable. Yuji flew into a rage and attacked Mahito, promising that he was going to kill him. This was the moment that it was revealed that Yuji was able to attack the soul because he was a vessel. This was also the moment that Mahito tried to transform Sukuna's soul. He was let off with a warning. Just as Mahito transformed, Nanami joined the fight as well. They fought him together, and Mahito activated his domain expansion. However, Sukuna was caught in the domain expansion as well, and he attacked Mahito because the only person he cared about was Megumi. This time, Sukuna steps in even without asking. As soon as Mahito attacks Yuji's soul, Sukuna shows up. He allows a soul touch to show Yuji just how dangerous the world of sorcery is. But this time he doesn't give Mahito another chance. Sukuna defends and Mahito reels back with a wound while realizing the danger he is in. He's confused about why Sukuna reacted that strongly, but thinks it's because of Sukuna's arrogant personality. At least he now believes they can still awaken Sukuna completely to bring him to their side. Meanwhile, Ryuji starts to now rely on Sukuna more. Next up is the Kyoto Goodwill competition. Though it was set up as a competition to test the skills of the students, the Kyoto higher-ups led by Principal Gakuganji ordered their students to assassinate Yuji. They saw Sukuna's vessel as something too dangerous to let live. When the event began, the Kyoto team went after Yuji. This was where Todo and Yuji met and became friends. Sukuna encourages Yuji to go after Todo and fight him. When asked why, Sukuna cryptically mentions that Todo would teach him a new disgusting technique. When Yuji asks him why he doesn't teach him that, he says nothing. After all, this was the technique that destroyed Sukuna last time. Yuji follows Sukuna's advice and starts fighting Todo. Interestingly, though Yuji is a lot stronger than Todo at this point because of his training with Sukuna and has more techniques, the battle forces him to use the Divergent Fist. That's when the moment happens again. The two warriors bond, and Todo teaches Yuji about Black Flash. This time, Yuji picks it up even faster than before, stunning his new brother with his genius. Then the curses attack. Yuji absolutely dominates in the fight against Hanami, surpassing his previous record of 4 consecutive Black Flashes. Thanks to Sukuna's teachings, he hits it 8 consecutive times while Todo supported him with his Boogie Woogie technique. As they are fighting, Gojo breaks through the barrier. Hanami senses this and hides. However, just like last time, Hanami is severely injured after Gojo attacks with Hollow Purple. However, the curses are successful at stealing the Sukuna fingers and the cursed wombs from the school's vault. They are still under the impression that Sukuna is evil, and their plan is to manufacture a situation where Yuji completely loses control to Sukuna. After this, Nobara and Yuji are tasked to go after the death paintings. Yuji defeats his opponent easily as soon as the two brothers show up. He offers Nobara his help, but she refuses, wanting to do things her own way. She eventually defeats her opponent as well. Sukuna knows the significance that the death paintings hold, but he stays silent, so that Yuji would discover the truth the same way he did last time. Then comes Shibuya. In the original timeline, Kenjaku's plan was simple, to seal Gojo so that the Culling games would go on uninterrupted. Jogo force-fed a semi-conscious Yuji 10 fingers at once. Sukuna awakened and destroyed Jogo. At the same time, Megumi was about to lose his life, so he summoned Mahoraga. This forced Sukuna to fight Mahoraga. Meanwhile, Nanami was blown up by Mahito and Nobara's face exploded. Shibuya wasn't a good time for the sorcerers at all. This time with Sukuna as Yuji's mentor, things go drastically differently. The main thing is that Sukuna tries to stop the sealing from happening. He speaks to both Yuji and Gojo, warning them that Gojo was going to be targeted. He mentions that an old face from the past would be used to trap him. Gojo laughs it off. He's still the strongest after all. And Yuji doesn't take this too seriously either. He still has belief in his teacher's strength. After all, he's never seen Gojo lose until now. However, Gojo is still sealed. Kenjaku is a master strategist, and this plan that he has been planning for almost 1,000 years, nothing can stop that, even Sukuna. But this time, Yuji and Sukuna are ready. When Jogo force feeds Yuji, Sukuna comes out again. But this time he's not an enemy, nor is he the old king of curses. He doesn't play around with Jogo. He finishes him off in seconds with a precise cleave. When Mahito tries to kill Nanami, Yuji arrives at the scene with Sukuna's advice. By this time, Yuji's control over Black Flash has greatly improved, so he's able to deal some decent damage to Mahito and cause him to retreat early. This also means that Nobara is also not injured by Mahito. Then with Sukuna's advice, he moves on to the next fight. He steps into the fight between Megumi and Haruta Shigemo at a crucial moment. He stops Megumi from being mortally wounded and using his trump card, summoning Mahoraga. This means that Sukuna doesn't have to use his domain expansion to kill him, and this ends up saving a lot of lives. However, even with Sukuna and Yuji working together, Yuji is limited by his lack of experience. Although he learns fast in active combat, he's not able to reach Kenjaku in time. Kenjaku gets away and starts planning his next move, the Culling games. But at this point, he's not aware of Sukuna's apparent betrayal. He sees Sukuna killing Jogo as just another aspect of his cruel personality. The battle against Mahito after this point goes exactly the same way it did in the original. Yuji's a lot more powerful right now. He's able to give Mahito a much harder time in their fight. However, just like before, Mahito does the old switcheroo and attacks Nobara. He uses idol transfiguration on her head, and her eyes blown out and she collapses in front of Yuji. This is Yuji's first real defeat in this timeline. Until now, Sukuna or Gojo have always been there to prevent the worst case. But for the first time, Yuji is facing a loss, and he crumbles. He's completely broken by the thought of losing Nobara. Even Sukuna's words aren't able to break through Yuji's pain. Mahito begins to beat him to death and mocks his philosophy. That's when Todo makes his grand entrance. He brings Nita, a person who has a healing stalling technique, giving Yuji some hope for Nobara's survival. He steps into the fight and gives Yuji a powerful speech on the burden of being a sorcerer. Finally, Yuji snaps out of his grief and attacks Mahito. Together they execute a complex sequence of boogie woogie, handing out a well-deserved ass-kicking to Mahito. Mahito transforms into his true form, but even that isn't enough. Against a much more powerful Yuji, powered by grief, he isn't able to do much. He's brutally beaten down by the two. This time, Todo doesn't lose his hand. He's beaten so badly that he's forced to transform into a small, pathetic state. Just like before, Kanjaku arrives and swallows him up. He then activates Maximum Uzumaki and uses Idol Transfiguration remotely. This sets up the next phase of his plan, the Culling Games. Why didn't Sukuna stop Kanjaku from absorbing Mahito? This would have ensured the Culling Games never happened. Here's the thing, Sukuna isn't purely good. He's changed, but he isn't a saint. His moral compass is completely different, and after all, he's 1,000 years old. He's not fazed by tragedies. One such tragedy he does not interfere in is the destruction of the Zenin clan. Things go just as in the original timeline. Naobito Zenin dies fighting against Jogo. Megumi is named the head of the Zenin clan. Maki and her sister are trapped by their father, and Mai sacrifices herself as before. Two things happen as a result of Mai's sacrifice for her sister. 1. Maki underwent a complete physical transformation and gained the same level of superhuman strength as Toji Fushiguro. 2. Maki got a powerful new weapon, the Split Soul Katana, one which was able to cause damage even to Sukuna. Mai's last words to her sister sealed the fate of the Zenin clan. She said, "Destroy everything, everything, big sister." Maki did exactly that and spared no one. Her father was the first, then the elite squad of warriors. Finally, even the high-ranking Grade 1 sorcerers just like Jinichi and Naoya were finished off. Maki wipes out the Zenin clan completely. The first thing the good guys do is visit Tengen and learn how to unseal Gojo. Sukuna hints that Gojo doesn't really need to be unsealed because he's there. The rest of the Culling Games go similarly to the original timeline in the beginning. Yuji still has an execution order on him. However, this time Yuta doesn't have an easy time against Yuji, so he indirectly hints about his binding vow, and together they stage the death. This time, before Yuta heals him with reverse curse technique, Yuji heals himself and comes back to life. After a little help from their friends, they're also able to unseal Gojo. Another thing that's different now is that Sukuna doesn't take over Megumi Fushiguro. Using the loophole in the Enchain vow, he still encourages Yuji to take the bath to increase his curse energy reserves. He also doesn't kill Yorozu, Sumiki Fushiguro. Instead, he convinces her to join his side. Of course, Yorozu accepts that she will join only on the condition that Sukuna defeats her. Yuji voluntarily gives up control to Sukuna this time. He also tells him to give closure to Yorozu as well. In Yuji's newly powered up body, that task is super easy. On her defeat, Yorozu is so overwhelmed by devotion to Sukuna that she presents him with the Kamutoki again, boosting Yuji's power even further. Moreover, this time Sukuna doesn't fight against the strongest sorcerers. He's on their side. This means during the Culling Games, Gojo is still alive, since Sukuna never kills him. Kashimo Hajime is on the side of Jujutsu High this time, and Chozo is still alive as well. Kanjaku tries to control the ancient cursed spirits, noticing the change in the battlefield. He rallies them all together for a final battle against the sorcerers who are standing against him. But there's an entire army of super-powered sorcerers fighting him. Maki, Yuta, Yuji with Sukuna's advice, Gojo and Megumi with his 10 shadows. This means that Kanjaku and his army of cursed spirits are destroyed much faster in this. Yuji again ends up at the top of the Jujutsu world after stopping the merger with Tengen, and this time so many others have survived as well. Gojo lives all the way to the events of Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo. After seeing the world that he was able to create with just guiding someone, Sukuna tells Yuji one final goodbye and vanishes into the void. This time Sukuna vanished after living a completely different life. But what if Kanjaku was reborn with his memories?